thanks for joining in here. My name is Dave McElveen. I'm the youth worker of Kilkeel Presbyterian Church. And we're in the church at the moment here, and I've got Ossie Wallace, Ossie an elder from our church, and it's great to be here tonight. And I've a number of questions to ask Ossie. We interview here, and hopefully we'll enjoy just the chat here. So, first question for you, Ossie. What was your best surprise?
Well, first of all, I don't really like surprises, but something that always stuck in my mind, and actually happened in this church here. It was a dirty action, I can tell you too. We were at an elders' prayer meeting. Now, please note this was an elders' prayer meeting. And one of the elders bent over to me and says, Ossie, I hope John Peacock remembers this. He says, Ossie, there's something on in the church today in the church hall, and one of the youngsters pulled down one of the curtains. Would you take a wee look at it? Now, this just happened to be about 2 weeks before my birthday. And I had always said that there was no mission that they would get me for my birthday. But John's told me that the woman doesn't want any talk about it, just to go and take a wee look at it. So whenever the prayer meeting was over, John and myself and Robert Adair headed over into the Samuel Boyd Hall. And as soon as we walked through the door, we smelled like cooking going on. And I said to John, do you smell that cooking? As quick as a flash, John says, yes, the PW is doing such and such a thing here today. And that was what the smell was. Walked on over, the lights were all off, walked into the creche area in there. Soon as I walked in through the door of the creche, Robert Adair was right behind me. The lights went on, and there was a whole drove of people all standing there. And I turned to go out, but with Robert Adair behind you, you'll not run too far. But I had to go in. That was it was a big surprise. And just the way they done it, can I say the sneaky way they done it too, take me out of a prayer meeting to go over to that. I was really, really gunked, and very pleasant surprise, but they really, really got me. A real major surprise.
Very good, Ossie, very good. Here, Ossie, what was your first vehicle?
Oh, now that's going back a day or two. My first car was a Ford Popular 100E, a green one. Now, I can't remember. I think it cost me £10, and the tax in them days was £30 for the year. But the chassis was broke on each side of the car. I don't know whether it's still chassis in cars or not. But we put a crowbar. Some people know what a crowbar is. We jammed a crowbar from the top of one wing over to the other wing of the car, and we tied a wire, really strong wire around to hold the whole frame of the car up. I drove about that for many months, and I'd done the job for a good while.
Very good, Ossie, very good. Ossie, I know you've been a Christian a long, long time, Ossie.
Not that long. Not long enough.
I know. But here, Ossie, tell us how and when did you become a Christian?
I remember it was the 23rd of February. I can't even remember what year. It's probably about 28, 29 years ago. I had been brought up in a Christian home, but I took absolutely no interest in the things of God. I just lived my life the way more or less I wanted to tell it. And in my later teenage years, I'd done many things that brought absolutely no glory to God. But as years went on here, I met Pamela from Kilkeel here, and after we got married with a child, and whenever we moved up here, I hadn't been going to church at all. And then we started going to around the different churches here to see where we sort of felt at home, and I actually felt that Kilkeel Presbyterian was a nice, cosy, comfortable, friendly church. So we started coming here after the child was born, and that really got us into the church. And then I was singing the Harvest at Sea choir here, and many people knows McGrath, dear lover, who used to be here for many years, looking after the choir and all. And there's the Harvest at Sea choir, so McGrath got me into the Harvest at Sea choir. But then it got to be where, at this stage, I wasn't saved. I got to be where I felt very guilty of, there I was standing or singing in the choir. The words were coming out of my lips, but they certainly weren't coming from my heart. And I explained it to McGrath, and McGrath, I always remember what she said. It says, Ossie, whenever you feel fit to come back to the choir, you'll be very welcome. But then the couple of years went on here, and then one year the church was vacant. Dr. John Dixon, Dixon was speaking here, and he spoke from Isaiah 56 verse 5, I think, is, seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Calling him when he is near. Let the wicked forsake his ways, and the evil man his thoughts. Unto our God, for he will freely pardon. And that really I was sitting, I remember exactly where I was sitting, and it just seemed as if my head and shoulders was all sitting up above everybody else, and he was speaking directly to me. He went on to say that God will only call you so often, and if you if you walk past him, if you don't let him accept him at that time, if you don't listen to that call, he may pass you by, and you'll miss your chance, and you'll never get an opportunity to be saved. Well, things went on for a full year, and the following year, there was a man you all know well, Eddie Kirk, came here. Now, Eddie arrived here on, I think it was the 14th of February, and with my surname being Wallace, obviously, if Eddie was visiting around the congregation, it could have been maybe a couple of years before he would visit us. But 2 weeks after he arrived, he called out to the shop to us, and I remember we're sitting just talking about things in general. He says, Ossie, if you ever want a wee yarn with me, just mention to me at the church door, and I'll call out and see you. Well, for the next full year, there's 2 doors, as you know, in this church here. If Eddie was at the left-hand door, I went out through the right-hand door. If he's at the right-hand door, I went out through the left-hand door, because I was scared of him saying anything to me. But then, about a year later, Pamela, my wife, I got saved, and she asked me to give him a ring. So I gave him a ring, and he came out. He thought he was coming out to see me, but he spoke to Pamela. I remember, just about how she got saved and all. And I remember where he's sitting on the chair. Pamela went into me. It was a Thursday, and he turned around the chair. Whenever Pamela went to make a cup of tea, and he said, "This is now, Ossie. What about you?" With a real, genuine concern. And I didn't make a commitment, but he left. And he left at about 5 to 1, because I had left Philip, his child, from the play school. That's a very while ago now. But after he went out, I just went to the kitchen. I remember I remember the shape of our tiles on the floor. And as we stood there, I got down on my knees and just actually cried as I asked God into my heart. Just confessed my sin, told him I was sorry. I mean, you had plenty of sin to confess. But as time's on, I found it very, very difficult to be convinced that I was really saved. I found it very difficult to tell anybody. And I finally told my mother. And I actually said to Mummy, after a lot of hesitation, 6 weeks after I got saved, I says, Mummy, I've turned up. Now, Pamela, my wife, had already told Mummy, unknown to me. I said to Mummy, I've turned over a new leaf. She turned round to me as quick as a flash. She said, you have not turned over a new leaf. You're saved. Remember that. You're saved. And I was not right. And then he was wrecked with doubts. But I remember one time talking to a young brother of mine. He was down Mummy's as well. And I was just telling him, he was a Christian, obviously. And he says to me, Ossie, if someone gives you a gift and you put it in your breast pocket, as you go about that day, you'll keep feeling your pocket to make sure it's still there. But if you hadn't been given that gift, you had never felt it was there at all. You wouldn't have think of feeling safe it there. And he says that's the same as being saved. If you weren't saved, you would never doubt yourself. But whenever you are saved, the devil will work overtime to try and discourage you and just make you feel as if you're not saved. But that was how I became a Christian, and I've known I was fortunate enough. Well, I don't know if I was fortunate or not to be elected an elder in the church here. I've worked in so many different organisations, and I hope I have grew. A few years ago, we done a course in the church here called Navigators 2.7, and it was absolutely great. It really helped me grow immensely with other some more mature Christians and some young Christians as well. That was, I feel, always felt that was the making of me as a young Christian.
Brilliant, Ossie. Another question here for you. Tell us about the most inspiring thing or person you have experienced.
Well, for me, Dave, that's an easy question to answer. I would say probably the most inspiring person that I've ever met in my life was my mother. Mommy was a woman who would never preach to us, a godly woman, never preached to us, but the way she lived her life. It was the way she acted and reacted to different things in her life. And even to us, now, I wasn't a good child in my younger years, but she was always there. She was compassionate, she was humble, she was loving, she was forgiving. She was just everything that you should be. And if I thought whenever I get older, although I'm getting on a bit now, I suppose too, but as I get older, I think it would be great if some of my children or grandchildren could look up to me the way I look up to my mother. She was a woman who people would have went to for spiritual advice. She just was such a godly woman. I'll tell you an interesting story. I said she she never preached to us, but she always showed us the right way to go. If she got a chance of saying something to a non-saved person, she would certainly say it. There was a lady, a next door neighbour of ours, down at home in Dromara, and Mommy just happened to say to her, I don't know what the conversation was about, but Mommy said to her, you know, man cannot live by bread alone. And the woman thought a minute and said, you know, you're right, Tilly. it takes a wee spud now and again too. So obviously the lady wasn't on the same wavelength as Mommy at all, but that was someone who I certainly looked up till and really, really admired, and I just hope that I can live a life, some sort of a life as though she had been living as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. A question here: what is a trip or experience that you had that had a big spiritual impact on you, and why?
For that, there's probably one thing that really stands out in my mind. I, as many of you know, I'm in the Gideons, and a few years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to El Salvador and Costa Rica. Now, for by the whole layout of El Salvador, it's a fairly dangerous place and all, but there was 21 of us, I think it was. There was people there from America, Sweden, Germany, South Korea, Australia, different nationalities. But every morning about 5:30, 6 o'clock, we were up and went down to one of the rooms for prayer time. Everybody got down on their knees, but everybody prayed in their own language. Prayed at different times, but everybody prayed in their own language. And this might sound silly, but it actually made the hair stand on the back of my neck, especially to hear the wee man from South Korea praying in his own language. We all sometimes get cocooned in our own wee spiritual cleat, but yet there's people out there the same as us, different languages, they look different, they dress different, they have different things, just completely different things about them, but yet we all pray to the one God. Another thing that I used to be always very skeptical of, you tell of people speaking at places and maybe a dozen or half a dozen people putting their hands up saying they want to come to faith. Well, I experienced that in some schools with adult teenagers, and my own personal instance was standing up explaining the things of God to a young group through an interpreter. I had a spoken interpreter translated what I was saying. On the end of it, they asked, would anybody in here like to come to the Lord, like to know Jesus as a personal Saviour? On one particular class, there were 6 or 8 people, there were maybe 17, 18, 19-year-old, put their hands up in front of all the classmates and said they want to become a Christian. And thankfully, in a situation like that, there's always someone there to back it up, to encourage them, to get them to a Bible-believing church. But that was something that was really, really challenging and really, really encouraging to me, Dave.
Brilliant. Also, the final question: if you could ask Jesus to change one problem in the world today, which problem would you pick?
There's a whole lot of problems in our world today. Probably unbelief. There's so many people in our world today who think they think they've got plenty of time left. They go about, there might be young people that think they're too young. They'll wait till they leave school, then they'll wait till they get a job. They think they'll wait maybe till they maybe get married and settle down with a family before they start to think about God. Then when it gets to that stage in life, they say, well, sure, I'll maybe wait till I'm older, I'll get a car and get the house settled down, and then I'll start to think about God. Then when it comes to that stage in life, they'll say, well, maybe I'll wait to retire because I have a lot going on here. I'll wait to retire, and then I'll start thinking about God. And sometimes it can be too late. Matthew 24, verse 44 says, therefore you must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not know. Not one of us know when our time on this earth is going to finish. Sadly, there's so many people like that. A whole lot of people think that they're too bad, or some people think they're not good enough. Some people maybe thinks that they don't need to make any change in their life. They maybe go to church, they maybe give into the church, they've been faithful church attenders all their life, but they feel as if they don't need to make any changes in their life. And unfortunately, that's sad, but the Bible says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. That's everyone. It doesn't matter whether we're saved or unsaved. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God.
Ossie, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Some of those stories were great, and your honesty, and thank you for sharing from your heart as well. So thank you so much for listening in, and thank you again. God bless. Bye.
Bye.